as I said, my name is Adewale. I'm a software engineer. I've been in the backend sphere for a while, but I'm not a backend developer. I'm a software engineer. So that means when the need is called upon me to work on front end, I can pick it up. That's the way it should be. I'm not just limited to that too. I understand database, right? I understand DevOps, because as a backend developer, you'll be playing with database, you'll be playing with some deployment, whatever. So deployment is for DevOps, right? But as a backend developer, there are some things you should know, even though you are just a backend developer. So I'll be showing you some of those stuff today. So this essence of today's call is to write up from where Esther stopped last week and 2 weeks ago. She did a great job. She's a very good teacher. She broke it down for us in a layman way, using the analogy of a restaurant, right? Let me just reiterate what she said in the first class, where she mentioned that, because I know some people are here that didn't join the first class. This is, if you're not in the class, go and watch the video. But let me just summarize what she said, right? Using the restaurant analogy. She said, imagine you're in a restaurant, right? There are some people that prepare the food, there are some people that serve the food, and there are some people that eat the food, right? So people that prepare the food, get the food ready. There are some people that go and serve the food for people to eat. And there's a part that you people see, you that you're coming to eat the food, right? The part that you see is the front end. It's visible to the eye. That's why when you are in the workspace, right, you see that most times back-end developers are angry. Why? Because the front-end guys are getting all the accolades and nobody recognizes the back-end guy. Because the back-end guy, when they ask you, what have you done? People can't see what you've done as a back-end person. But for the front-end person, he or she has something to show. And, they get more accolades and more appreciation, right? Not knowing that people prepare the food that the front-end is displaying, right? Front-end, the person did a great job. And there's the main stack, the full stack, where I'm the one I'm the one cooking the food, and I'm the one showing the food for you to see, right? And she explained the concept of API as the messenger, right? What you communicate between the front end and back end, right? So today, what we'll be doing is basically, okay, I've heard about backend development. Okay, I've seen some languages. I've seen how to declare variable. I've seen how to do loop. So I'm still confused. Where do I start from? So that's the essence of today's class, right? It's more like to provide like a roadmap. Thank you very much. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so as I was saying, I've explained the concepts. I've reiterated what the first tutor showed us, right? When she was trying to explain to us what backend development is all about. So I mentioned that she explained the concept from the perspective of a restaurant. So I'm sharing my slide now. If you can see my slide, just do a thumbs up. Let me be sure. Just confirm you can see my slide. All right, thank you. I think Joshua is the only active person in this class. Maybe it's Joshua that will give a gift after the end of the class. It's the only person that is active. Maybe a trip to Dubai or a trip to anywhere he wants to go. Or I can send him a book. Or I can send him, or I can connect him for internship once he's ready. So everybody please be active. All right, so if you can see my screen, you can see that today's class is about backend development roadmap for beginners. So I'm more like assuming that you're a beginner, even though I know that there are some guys that are not beginners. At least I know like 2 people here that are not beginners, but they are still here. So yeah, and don't be scared. So people are always scared when it comes to programming. They're like, this thing is too much. Where do I start from? What do I want to do? How do I go about it? How do I understand what I'm supposed to do? That's part of what I'll be showing you today. Don't be overwhelmed. There's a lot. Let me tell you for a fact. There's languages. I don't know if Esther touched that there's a difference between a language and a framework. I want to cover that today. Java, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, PHP, all those ones are languages. Each of these languages, they now have frameworks. And frameworks are coming out every day, right? New framework today, and then next month. So it can be so overwhelming. So first thing, Pongwe means calm down, right? You can't learn everything at once. Just focus and pick a niche and learn it. So I'll be using my story to explain how I got to understand it. So when it comes to software space, let me go back to that again.
please don't limit yourself to a language. Things change. Java have changed from Java 1, I mean Java 8 or Java 7 to Java what now? Java 22, Java 23. And another Java will soon come out again. Python have changed. The syntax have changed, right? So they will keep changing. So if you limit yourself to a language, or for example, you used to work in a company. So I have a friend who works with GG and they were using Java. And they told her, they just called that one money and like, hey, I won't mention her name, some of you might know her. But yeah, I'll come and pick up. We have a product we want to build, and we don't want to use Java, right? We have trade-offs that make us want to use Java. We want to use Node.js. And this lady have never written Node.js before. Now, if you are language specific, is this one? I want to sit down with Python. I like Python. I don't understand Java. You will be lost in that kind of situation. This lady have never written JavaScript before. It's just Java she knew because she went to a tech school. And before you know it, because she was open-minded, and that's the essence of that's why I'm starting this way. Because she was open-minded, within 3 months, the product was ready, and she had never written it before. And she found her way through. How did she find her way through? Because she didn't limit herself to a language. So first thing first, don't say that it is only this one I want to do. I can't do any other one. You can do it. So backend development is not specific to language. Software engineering is not software developer, is not coder. Eh? You should be able to relate with the product, understand the problem they're trying to solve, be able to read requirement documents, be able to read newsletters, be able to read documentation, understand what you're supposed to do. So such that if tomorrow your company say they are no more using a language, you will not be lost. You will not be crying that, or you not start looking for another job because you've limited yourself to one language. Please also don't get me wrong. Don't say because you want to learn plenty languages, you don't know one first. What I advise my students is pick one language, but don't focus on language, right? Pick one language, know it well. But before language, understand the software engineering space, understand how problem solving works, understand, if you can, design thinking, right? There's a problem you want to solve. How do you approach the problem? And that's why when I'm teaching backend development, we don't start from code. No, we start from diagrams. So, okay, they want me to build an application that can add 1 plus 1 equals to 2. So how do I do it? What do I do first? So regardless of any language now. So I don't tell my student, oh yeah, open and start writing Python. No. Without any code, show me how you approach it. Right? That's where flowchart comes in. Right? Oh yeah, you want to do 2 plus 2 to get 4. How do you do it? Don't show me code. How will you do it without any language? Flowchart will help you do it. You have your starting point, right? After you have your starting point, you declare variable first. If you have to declare variables, right? And maybe you want to add 2 numbers, right? First thing, declare the first variable to take in the first number. Declare the second variable to take in the second number. Now, I'm not talking about any language. Any language can do this thing, whether Python, Java, Node, PHP, JavaScript, anyone, right? I've declared the first number, a variable to take in the first number. I've declared a variable to take in the second number. I've declared a way to accept, to fill in into that variable, right? And after that, I can do my computation by using the addition sign. And after that, I can compute and get my results. Without a language, I've given you a flowchart to add 2 numbers. And that's the way you should see programming as. The goal is first to solve a problem. The goal is not to use a language. The goal is to solve a problem. Let me give you another story. When I would join the company, right, in Ghana, I'd never used Java before. Sorry, I learned with Java. I started with Python, but then I was in data analysis space, right? So when I moved to software development, it was Java. So a Ghanaian company gave me an internship opportunity, and they were not going to pay me. So be open to, if you are learning, to be open to accepting free. We'll get there. I'll show you that. It's not everything you should collect money. Sometimes it's the skills you need. When you are good with the skills, you can. Now, when I'm negotiating salary, I'm not negotiating salary like this. So I tell you, pay me so amount. If you don't pay me, no problem. Go your way. And there's a level of confidence that comes with knowing your skills. You can negotiate your way. But if your focus is money, I want to start collecting 1 million. you won't go far. So let me go back to the story, right? When I joined this company, it was just Java. So I knew, like that I knew very well. That was my core language. So I have a primary language. So now we started from solving a problem without putting any language in mind. But how do I, there's a problem. How do I solve this problem? I use a flow chart to define it. So regardless of any language I decide to use, this is what I'll do first. This is what I'll do second. This is what I'll do third. This is what I'll do last. So we use addition as example, right? Now you solve a problem. Anybody can do that. Now you can also say that, okay, oh, my primary language is this. I'll use language to solve this problem. So let me drop a chat for you. If you're on your system, you can open that, go to HackerRank, right? Which other one again? It's code. All this, just search for it on your browser. I can drop the website, but intentionally not do not drop the website. So you go and do your research and check by yourself. So these are platforms that as developers are just entering. If you want to learn a language, this is one of the fastest way. Right? All this platform, what it does is it gives you opportunity to solve problem, and they give you diverse options of language, right? You can use any language of your choice to solve the problem. And with that, and that was how I started. When I got to that piece, that was where I started. I was like, okay, at least I understand problem solving. I know how to solve the problem, and I know how to use a language to solve the problem. The only challenge now is that I have to use another language that I'm not familiar with. As far as what is different between those languages are just syntax, right? In Java, we would have done int this equals to this. In Golang, we don't do it that way, right? There's a way we do it. In JavaScript, in TypeScript, there's a way we do it. Abi, right? In Python, there's a way we do it. Python is dynamically typed. It's not statically typed. I'm sure, I don't know if she covered that in the second class, but yeah, basically, you are not rigid on, you must declare a variable. You are not rigid on the structure with which it's just like, okay, let me use, sorry, is it okay to use this example? That will help convey the point, but I don't know if it's a clean example to use. So, there are some people, anything goes, they can accept anything. Or, yeah, whether it's a guy or a girl, they can date anybody. Whether the person is reasonable or not, they can date anybody. There are some languages like that. There are some languages that, if you want to date me, these are the kind of people I'm looking for. I am rigid to this. This is what I'm expecting from you. I am statically typed. I'm not like this. There's a structure I expect, and you must follow, right? So there are some languages like that. That's the pattern with which they work, right? So let me reiterate everything I've said again, in case you didn't get me. First thing first, don't be a language person. So if it's just a minute, this person is distracting me. Let me tell the person I'm in a class so that the person will stop calling. Sorry about that. All right. So sorry about the distraction. Right. So I said don't be language specific, that this is language I must use. If goal is you are solving a problem, right? You understand the problem you are solving, and you know the solution to the problem using a flow chart, right? So just a minute. Another class is ongoing and they're having an issue. All right, you have my full attention now. Sorry about the distraction. Yeah, so I was saying that you know what you're trying to solve, right? Whichever tool you now use now depends on some factors which I'll be showing you. But as I said, don't be a language specific person. Know how to know that you are solving a problem. And this HackerRank, this code are tools you can use to solve problem effectively, right? So if you want to learn a new language, let's say you're a Python person before and you want to learn another language, right? You can use all these tools to solve problem um, uh, using any language of your choice. So without wasting much time, why is backend important, right? Backend development powers the digital world, creating opportunities. Your skills will enable innovation and impact, right? Um, Diverse projects, competitive salaries. Front-end guys used to beef us. Say backend, you collect more than front-end. I won't say more. I won't say anything more. Right? Learn to develop and maintain the server side. Oh, code, right? When it comes to driving application, opportunities in high demand, and they pay well, the impact, you are solving real problems, right? So as using the analogy of that restaurant, as a backend developer, people are seeing something which the front end is building, but the engine powering it, the front end is useless without back end. Like, from a perspective, there's another perspective where front end is not really useless without back ends. So let me give you a gist. There's an application we have currently running. We don't have a structured backend yet. Like, we don't have a backend, right? We just connected it to a platform that houses or do what backend is supposed to do in a way, that stores data, but not processing it in a way, right? So yeah, in a way, front end is useless if there's no backend that powers it, right? In another way, there's a way front end can find their way around it, that even without calling backend, they can do some stuff, right? They can use other tools at backend, Firebase and other stuff, but that's not the focus. But what I'm trying to make is that front end needs backend, right? There's communication. You want to serve food. Where is the food? Someone is preparing the food for you to serve, right? So where is the food? Where is the food you want to serve? That's in form of API now when there is no backend, right? So backend is very important for the front end, right? Front end is, it's the design, you see like login button and all those things, but it's beyond that, right? So on the backend, you are doing more like processing logics, right? Some of you must have heard of MVP. Some of you must have heard of some other buzzwords. Don't worry, they are not big stops. Model view, controller, model view, and all that stuff like that, right? What basically happens on the back end is that I collect data or I send out data. I process the data. I store the data somewhere, right? So we'll do an example together. We are not going to use any language, but after the class, you personally, you can pick up any language to do what I'm going to explain to you. Because as I said, it's not language specific. Be a software engineer, not a coder. Be able to think through a problem and use whatever tools are appropriate. So let me give you a gist too, or let me give you another tip that can help. So I've worked in the financial industry most of my life as a developer. Banks, financial institutions, right? And loan companies and all. And one thing is, you will notice that many of them, for their backend, they use C-based languages, Java, C#, right? And there's a reason for that. I would explain that. Okay, let me give you as assignment. Go and do your research. Why is that financial platforms use all these languages? I may have given you Expo when I was explaining. Sorry, for our international audience, when I say Expo, what I mean is I've given you tips or insights into why that can be the case, right? Some languages are structured, some languages have strong concurrency. Oh, sorry, I'm using some words I'm not supposed to use. But some languages are better suited for financial stuff, right? And yeah, those languages are there. And if you are building things like e-commerce application and all that, so that's why when it comes to choice of languages, your software architect or your whatever can decide, oh, this is the language you should use. This is the language you should not use. This is the language you are going to use based on some factors that are considered. But as a developer, as a backend developer, or as a software engineer, don't be rigid that this is the only language I want to learn, right? So as I was saying, backend person is either you collect data in forms of posts. So I know that I think she covered that HTTP type, like in forms of post, get, put, or patch, or delete, or update. So let me explain. When you are doing API, when you are collecting data or sending out data, right? When the front end is getting data from you, sourcing data from you. So let's say, for example, you have a website where you can register, you can log in. So to register now, you need to fill in some details. Let's say you want to register on Money Points app, or let me use another platform. You want to buy food on Glovo and you want to create an account, right? They'll collect some details from you now. They'll collect your first name, they'll collect your last name, they'll collect your email, they'll collect your phone number. So when they collect all those data, where are those data going to? They are going somewhere. They are going to the backend. And backend is processing that data and storing it in the database. So you can't be a backend developer without understanding database. I'll show you in this slide. Right? They'll process the data based on the business logic. Business logic is basically data processing, like logic, some logic action or whatever action you need to perform before storing the data in the database, right? And when they are done, right? All these things they are doing, they are doing it on their laptop. So some people used to ask that all these code people are writing on your laptop, how is it exposed for millions of people to be able to use it, right? So when the backend person is done and I've tested his application on his Docker and everything is fine, right? Then is either the backend person Dockerize or not. I will explain that later. Or the backend person just compile or process it into a format which can be deployed. So when I say deploy, you are taking the code, converting it to a way that it can be properly consumed, but not from your laptop, outside of your laptop to a server. Okay, let me put it that way. Your laptop is like a local server, right? You now have like your remote server, right? Where people will be able to access it. So me now, if I start my application on my laptop, except I use some tools like there are some tools you can use to connect. There is just a establishing connection, right? Between your laptop and another source, right? Except you're using a tool. If I start an application on my laptop, someone in London can't access the application I've built via my laptop. There are exceptions. I'm not going to talk about the exceptions because it's not within scope of risk. Because of my level of experience, I can mention that there are exceptions, right? So, but on a normal day, right? If I start an application on my laptop, let's say I've written a code that can add two numbers, and I start that code on my laptop, right? I build a calculator on my laptop from the back end, right? Someone in London cannot access what is on my laptop because it's still my local. But if I take that code I've written and put it in a server that is publicly accessible, the front-end person or someone can access it and use it to add two numbers, right? So that's the same thing, right? As a backend person, when you are sending out data, so I was using the example of register. When you are registering, that means you are collecting the data, processing data, and saving it in database, right? In most cases, you are making a post request. Front end is making a post request to the backend to save data, right? Front end, after data being saved, let's say you now want to fetch user details. Front end can request to fetch. When you are fetching, use a get protocol to get data, right? Whether it's RESTful, yeah, I'm talking about RESTful now, right? Now, there's not the case of I want to delete data. You can use a delete option. I want to update data. You can use either root or patch, right? For one, it means that I want to update a data, but I'm not updating everything about the data. For put, it means that I want to change everything about that data, right? So those are some of the backend tips I believe you might have learned in the last class. So let's go to the next slide. Essential programming languages. Please don't be limited to this. I'm just using this as an example, right? Pick a primary language you want to learn first, right? Some of you might say, I want to learn Python, I want to learn JavaScript, or I want to learn Java, I want to learn PHP, I want to learn Golang, I want to learn. So, yeah, do your research and understand what you want to do. But these languages, they offer like versatile and strong communication patterns, right? So, for Python, many people use Python because it's more like beginner friendly. It has syntax that are helpful and it has several libraries, right? So most of these models you see data scientists build, right? They use languages that are suitable for that, like Python. So if you're a data analyst too, you use Python. If you're a data scientist, you use Python, right? You can just use another language, but in terms of what you need it for, it's quite helpful. That's why for many people, any backend developer, they start with Python, right? Most of your models like ChatGPT and Co and all that, especially popular models, right? They started from using languages like this. There's JavaScript, right? You can use it for essentially for like full stack development, either with Node.js on the backend side and all that. There's TypeScript, which is more like I remember in one of the classes, Esther was explaining what's the name? I'm trying to remember now. OOP, concept of OOP, that's object-oriented programming. You can go and read about it, right? But with TypeScript, it's more like apply OOP concepts, right? So then there's Java. When talking about enterprise application, it's more like robust. That's why many of the banks you see in Nigeria or outside Nigeria, many of the financial organizations, money point. I shouldn't mention any companies that use Java, but yeah. Or can I mention it? InterSwitch, Money Point, Stanbic Bank, at least those that I know. Okay, Pampi, yes. Several other platforms they use Java. Some other banks use C Sharp, right? The likes of GT Bank. So when I was working in one of the banks, right, we were not using Java for everything. We were using Java for some of our applications. We were using C Sharp for some of our applications. We were using Python for some of our modern message applications. We're using, so it's not a matter of the whole financial organization is using the same thing, right? For example, maybe for InterSwitch now, they use Java for some of their backend. They use some other languages, right? Depending on the use case, right? So it depends. But those are essentially some of the languages, right? You can do more research by searching for more websites, more. So it's very important you understand databases and APIs as a backend developer, right? So understand the difference between structured query languages and non-structured query languages. So if you hear SQL and non-SQL, that's what it means. What are structured query languages? These are query languages that are structured. What it means is that they have a structure. Most of these banks, they need connection between tables. So they use structure-based languages for most of their for their backend, right? Well, what are example of structure query languages? Postgres, MySQL, Oracle DB, and several others. Microsoft SQL, right? What are non-structured? So most banks, financial organizations, because they want to be able to connect data between tables, they use structure. So I have a table called users. I have a table called transaction, right? Users have transactions, right? So I want to be able to know which user is the owner of which transaction. Do you get? So for that, they need a structure, not just rigid, not just a flexible one. So NoSQL is flexible. So if you've heard of MongoDB, Cassandra DB, and say some other non-structured database languages, those ones they are not social. For many e-commerce applications now, you have like several things in your cart and all those things. You don't necessarily need a structure per se. So many of those platforms they prefer to use NoSQL, right? So some, at least I've worked in some banks and they use both structured and non-structured, because it's not in all cases you use structured based on my explanation now, right? So in one of the financial organizations I used to work, we use NoSQL to store some data that we know we don't need a structure for. So it depends. So what APIs, application programming interfaces, right? There are different, there is REST, there is SOAP, there is GraphQL. Do more research on that. That's not the scope of today's class. But you must be able to understand. I'm telling you roadmap now, right? There are some fundamentals you'll be able to understand, right? Databases, how stores and manage data, NoSQL, know when to use what. I've given you use cases. You can use, you know when to use some types of APIs, right? REST, implementing powerful APIs too and all.